Good morning, students. I, LHMNS Deo, once again call you all to discuss about the poem The Leisure. But before we do it, it's better to know some of the poetic devices which have been used in your this chapter, in your this poem, The Leisure. Students, poetic devices are tools which are used to give a proper shape, lyricality, fineness, softness, melodicity to a piece of poem. Devices are the tools. Tools means small gadgets, small objects which help in giving any shape or proper form or even the beautification to a piece of work which has to be modified, which has to be made into a proper figure. You know it that a sculptor, he needs chisel, hammer and other things also to give a shape to a stone piece. With the help of these gadgets, he frames beautiful statues. Similar is the case with the poets. They use some gadgets, they use some devices to make any figure most appreciable. And this is what we have to understand before we take up the poem The Leisure to be discussed ahead. Now, when we have come to know something about poetic devices, let us know this much, that literary devices are tools in literature, and these tools are very necessary not only for a poet, rather for a dramatist, a novelist, a narrator, even for sometimes a travelogue. When we know that these poetic devices are very necessary, we must know that the number of these poetic devices is innumerable. Poetic devices are innumerable in numbers. And because of them that we have different kinds of forms of various classes or kinds of literature. For example, we come to know a lot about lyrics, rhymes, couplets, sonnets, odes, ballads, epics, verses, narratives, stories, dramas, biographies, autobiographies, because of a certain kind of devices used in formation of each of these kinds of writing, kinds of compositions. And as I intended to tell you that these poetic devices are innumerable in number, But we have to discuss here those ones which have already been used in the poem The Leisure. The important ones used here are simile, metaphor, alliteration, imagery, and personification. But this poem The Leisure has started not with any of these five as I stated. It has been started with another poetic device, and this is rhetoric. Now, rhetoric may be a new word for you, but this is frequently used in English language and literature, and especially in poem pieces. What is rhetoric? You see, rhetoric is a poetic device which asks question but doesn't require an answer. The reason is that answer is already inherent in it. It is already there. Example is here. What is this life if full of care? What is this life if full of care? This means that life is nothing if there is only care and there is no time at all to enjoy the pleasures of life. What is this life if full of care means life is nothing if there is no time to enjoy the life or enjoy the pleasure of life. Since answer is already here, so the poet doesn't care to write the answer again or even to ask you to tell him the answer. There are many such questions which are considered to be rhetoric. For example, there is one rhetoric in one of the poems, Julius Caesar, and in other places also, at other places also, we find such questions. Who doesn't love his country? Answer is already here that everyone loves his country. So the poet doesn't want this question to be answered. This is what is called rhetoric. Rhetoric is that poetic device which has the answer in itself. What is this life if full of care? Means this life is nothing if there is only care, worries, difficulties, problems, and there is no time to enjoy the pleasure of life. Now next one is simile. Simile is a very common kind of poetic device. It is a very common literary device. It is a composite of some elements which can be studied in these terms. Now look at which are the components of a simile. Presence of two objects. It is necessary that there must be two objects so that the poet can compare one object with the other. But are these objects quite identical, exactly like each other? A boy and a boy, a girl and a girl? Not perhaps. Then what is the next component? Similarity at any particular point, not solely identical. There should be some particular point where these two things can be alike. The third one, direct comparison between two objects. In simile, we find clear-cut two objects. Suppose Lucy is like a lily. Lucy is like a lily. Lucy and lily. These two are openly presented. That's why what is it? That this particular point in beauty, they both are same. So these two objects or such two objects are needed, not the identical. Lucy cannot be compared to any Adela Quested or any Leelavati or someone else. If that type of comparison is there, that will be a comparison. If there is parity between these two, that parity will be called comparison. So this is what you have to understand, that there is direct comparison between two objects in a simile. Now next point, for a simile or for a comparison to be simile is use of as or like. There must be either of these two. For example, Lakshmi is like the moon. In serenity, Lakshmi has parity with the moon. Similarly, Lakshmi is not as strong as Renu. If you find any this type of sentences or lines in any piece of poem which has either as or like, this sort of expression is called simile, or the device which is used in any such a composition is called simile. Clarity of comparison. In the comparison which we consider to be a simile, we find clarity of comparison. We find two things clearly presented, two things brought to the view quite clearly. If all these tenets, if all these qualities are found in any piece of writing, this is called simile. Here, in your poem, The Leisure, you have these similes used abundantly. For example, and state as long as sheep or cows, and stare, it is stare, and stare as long as sheep or cows. You correct this word stat, state. This is misspelt, or you can say this is typing mistake. This is stare, stare, stare means to look at. And stare as long as sheep or cows. Here you are finding as has been used, and for this reason, since there is comparison between two objects, so it can be stated to be a simile. Next is streams full of stars like skies at night. Streams full of stars. There are small rivulets which seems to have many stars, just as we find the stars at night in the skies or on the skies, on the sky. streams full of stars, like skies at night. Just as you can see innumerable stars at night on heaven, on the sky, similarly, stars can be seen in small rivulets. This is how the comparison has been done. You know it, that in appearance stars may be exactly like the stars at night, but you know it that both are not exactly similar. The next, in this manner, what we find that there are many similes in your poem, the famous poem, The Leisure. The next poetic device is metaphor. This device also is very important. It also has its many components. Now, which are the components you have to see here? Two objects, just as we need two objects in simile, exactly like that, here also in metaphor we have to have two objects. Next is similarity between two small parts in two objects. Two completely identical objects, or the comparison between two exactly identical objects cannot be said to be a simile. For a poetic device to be called simile, it's necessary that the objects must be different, but they must have some slight parity, equalness in these two objects. Then the device will be called to be a metaphor. Third is indirect comparison or applied comparison. Here slightly we find some difference from the simile, from simile. There it is direct, but here in metaphor it is indirect. Why? Because sometimes we don't find two objects quite clearly. For example, he was a lion in Punjab. Whenever we express this type of our idea or our view, we refer to Lala Lajpat Rai. He is called Sher-e Punjab. In this manner, what we find that as or like is not used. For that reason, this comparison in metaphor becomes indirect. And then as or like is not used here, which we find in case of simile. And then magnification of meaning is also here. If we say he is very brave, we don't mean exactly what we want to. If we want the magnification, the extension of the meaning, then we will have to compare he with any lion or tiger, because they are the bravest of the animals, even the bravest in their strength to any kind of creatures upon this earth. So if we use metaphor, then we magnify the meaning as well. Now next is personification. In this poetic device, a lifeless thing, an inanimate thing, is given a living feeling. a living presentation. In the poem Leisure, this device has been used in the term beauty. When a word is personified, when it is given a lifelike stature, then it is written with capital. And that's what has been done in your poem The Leisure. Beauty has been personified. The expression is no time to turn at beauty's glance. No time to turn at beauty's glance. Meaning is that someone or the narrator doesn't have time to look at the beauty's appearance. Where the beauty stands, where it's waiting for someone to look at her, is not looked at. This is what is the meaning of the poet here. Beauty has been used as a character in the poem Leisure, as charity, hopeful, obstinate, Christian, etc. have been used in John Bunyan's poem, this in his poem John Pilgrim's Progress. John Bunyan's poem The Pilgrim's Progress. The abstract ideas have been given, the character-like gestures, character-like thoughts, ideas, and that's why this beauty can be stated to be very similar to those characters which we find in Pilgrim's Progress, which is a poem written by John Bunyan. Now next one is imagery. This device produces various images related to objects, actions and ideas. Imagery creates mental pictures as well. Moreover, in many cases, it is associated with what one listens, sees, feels, smells and tastes. Such images have verbal as well as suggestive meanings. The poem Leisure has many images like streams full of stars. Streams full of stars like skies at night. Here, the poetic device imagery also has been used. The next very important poetic device is alliteration. Alliteration is repetition of the same sound in a sentence or a line. It plays a vital role in composition of a piece of poem. It has many functions to play. It draws the attention of the addressee. It lays stress in any part of the composition. It magnifies, it extends the assertion, and most importantly, it beautifies the poem. Leisure has in it plurality of alliterative expressions. Because of this alliteration, that we have all kinds of rhymes. Even the meters are always guided by alliteration. Where there is no alliteration, there is scarcely exceptionally any kind of meter. And especially the poem Leisure has many alliterative expressions. For example, what is this life if full of care? What is this life if full of care? And we have no time to stand and stare. Here sounds fa and sa have been repeated. In other expression, streams full of stars, like skies at night. Again, the sound sa has been used more than once. In totality, it can be asserted that alliteration is very significant. The other devices may be used later on, but alliteration starts from very beginning. The children who have to study something, they start their study with rhymes, with the sonority of sounds, with rhythms, lyricisms, and for that reason, for the pleasant nature of alliteration, we find something very significant in this respect. All nursery rhymes, they have alliteration, or at least most of the rhymes have alliteration. This is what we find that, or this is how we find that alliteration is very important. Even in couplets, triplets, in other form of compositions, we have this alliterative form of the poetic device. Without them, we can't expect any good piece of work, or at least the rhythmic piece of work. So that's why it's very necessary, children, to know something about these poetic devices to understand the poem The Leisure properly. Today I discussed the important poetic devices used in the poem Leisure. And in next video we will start analyzing the lines of the poem. I have already stated you that all small children, they enjoy the poetic device whether they know it or not. For example, ba ba black sheep. You look at here, ba ba black. At once 3 ba sounds. So this is how you find that alliteration is very important, and it is enjoyed by all persons, ranging from small children to the grown-up ones who go on singing some song because of the rhythm, because of the lyricality of the poem. And the lyricism, the lyricality, the musicality is often brought about by alliteration. So alliteration is very important. Now we will see each other or one another again in our next meeting. Bye then. Bye.